So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges and what drives them forward. And today I'm really delighted to have with us Carl Harrison, who's the CEO at LS10. Carl, welcome, and it's great to see you after such a long time. But if you'd like to just firstly introduce yourself and LS10 and what you do and how you help people, that would be great.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for having me, Chris. It's lovely to see you after a long break. So as you say, I'm Carl Harrison. I'm the Chief Exec of LS10. We're a small charity based in South Leeds, and we do a variety of different things. So we're an indoor skate park, which is open to the general public over evening and the weekend. Along with that, we run an independent school, so we're Ofsted registered. We work with young people that struggle to access mainstream education through emotional, behavioural issues. And we provide a variety of support in place that's bespoke for each young person to ensure they can raise aspirations and sort of put them on the right journey for development. We lead youth work for the Enhanced Youth Work project in the south of the city, and we work across the east and the west of the city, working with other third sector providers, especially sort of Barker, who we jointly lead in that programme with. Along with that, we deal with a lot of external community programs outside in sort of parks, community facilities, delivering wheeled sports and a variety of other programs.
Wonderful. It's a great thing that you do. And if you could kind of maybe talk about your background, how you got into LS10 and why LS10, and you know, there's a whole journey there. I know that I think people will find fascinating.
Yeah, as you say, it's not been a straightforward process. I mean, my background is I'm ex-military, so I was a bit of a tearaway as a young person. I didn't necessarily find school the easiest, and I needed structure and stability. And fortunately, I was able to stay on track through sport. So I was a good rugby player, so that kept me in the straight and narrow most of the time. And then I joined the military, and the military taught me a hell of a lot about who I was as a person, who I wanted to be as a person, and also a bit more around the self-discipline and structure and understanding. And when I left the military, I started working in rugby, and I fell into teaching and delivering education. But I found that my true passion and the thing I was good at was working with young people that were on the fringes, those that struggled to access education, those that were sort of finding it difficult to control their behaviours, their emotions, and I found that I was able to sort of break down some barriers. I was able to sort of see myself in those young people and recognise the things that triggered my positive interactions, and so that was a motivating factor to sort of look at how I could further get involved in that field of work. Fortunately, I worked in a really good college and was supported with some really good sort of mentors and staff that sort of give me some good understanding, and I managed to do a university course around sort of basically becoming a teacher. In that time, I managed to write a program that I thought this would be a really good package to work with those young people to sort of try and re-establish some responsibilities and some behaviours that would set them on a more positive path for post 16 and beyond. Unfortunately, at the time, the college didn't buy into that package, and I thought, well, at first I accepted it and left it for a few months, and then after a few months I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. And I was coaching at a rugby club, and I took the proposition to them that don't worry about any sort of payment or anything, I'll carry on coaching, but let me use your facility. And that was the first time I set up a business. Completely no concept of how to run a business, no concept of sort of the financial sort of requirements of it, or the staffing elements, or the insurances, or anything else. Just ideology of these young people deserve better. I believe this approach will really be good for these young people. Let's give it a go. And that's where AIM Education was born out of, sort of in 2013. That moved from 2013. We evolved from a rugby club to a church hall to a sort of a specific facility above a gym, and then sort of long story short, we merged with another charity that didn't quite go so well. There were some ups and downs there that I can come back to, and from there things went wrong. Unfortunately, the charity went bust, and I had to start again. And in 2019, we started LS10, and it was about all the learnings of what we'd had from the works, and then moving into sort of a new venture. And okay, let's use all the best things that we've done, and let's cut out all the things that didn't work and start up again. And LS10 is sort of, the reason we call it LS10 is because it's rooted in the South Leeds community. It's although we work with young people throughout Leeds and out of Leeds, we are rooted in that community. We belong to that community. Decisions we make are about sort of benefiting that community and the people that are within it. And we've gone from strength to strength. We operated throughout COVID. We had sort of everything from virtual sessions through to face-to-face doorstep sessions, through to sort of young people that were struggling to be at home, coming on site. So it was a huge learning curve, a huge developing opportunity, and now we're stronger than we've ever been. Sort of fingers crossed we'll turn over a million this year, which is an incredible turnaround from an organisation that in 2019 started with nothing. So yeah, it's been a long journey. Well, it feels like it's been long at points, but it's very enjoyable, very rewarding. And I've learned a hell of a lot in that time.
Wowzers. I look forward to talk a bit more about your learning. And I know how tough it was for you in 2019. You know, that to know that you know that you're now a million turnover, that is absolutely phenomenal. So hopefully occasionally you get a chance to look back and reflect on how far you've come, because that's wonderful. Really wonderful. Tell me about these, you say doorstep sessions. So what does that mean?
Oh, during COVID, obviously the young people that we work with this, they still need to access an education, but due to sort of the nature of the young people we work with, it's really important that their sort of mental health support, their safeguarding elements, that we're getting to see those young people day to day. And the virtual learning is great, but let's be fair, there's a huge digital divide in the world. And sort of, we talk about sort of deprivation and sort of not everyone can afford a computer, not everyone can afford internet. So ultimately, face-to-face is always the best method of communication in my mind. So during COVID, we had people on site that got young people accessing site, but then if they went on site, we were sending people out to sort of basically go and see people at the doors, taking around packages, and sort of just checking they're all right and looking at making sure how they can get on.
That's phenomenal. What a wonderful thing. Geez, that's yeah, well done. So I mean, I know there's been many, but what are some of the key issues that you've had to overcome? I know we're only going to do this for 20 minutes, but
yeah, no, I think there's sort of a couple of the sort of key issues. I think initially was well, the biggest one was going insolvent. But before when we first started out, you talk about what was the biggest issue: being taken seriously. I was a squaddie that had been a teacher for 2 minutes, and suddenly I wanted to set up a provision. And when I sort of said that to the local authority in Leeds, at first there was a huge dismissive attitude to, well, what do you know? How can you do this? And it took me a year. The first time I approached someone, I was just met with, you don't have the experience, the understanding, or anything like that. And I understand that response, completely understand that response. And so I went away and I licked my wounds for 12 months, rewrote a business plan, and took it back to them, and was met with the same response 12 months later. But this time around I thought, you know what? I'm not bothered. I'm doing it anyway. And I camped in sort of receptions of schools, and I offered sort of payment on placement. So if a kid doesn't turn up, we don't worry about paying us. We'll pick them up from the house. We'll drop them off afterwards. We'll do everything we need to do, and we'll prove that we're good enough. And we got it off the ground. So there was that element of, sort of getting somebody to actually take us seriously and be on board with what we were about. And when I say we, I mean at that point it was me. So it was, but then obviously the biggest issue we've had is when we went insolvent. It was heartbreaking. I'd worked really hard to build AIM Education, and we merged with another charity, and for whatever reason, and there's no point in breaking it down, it didn't work. There were things that went wrong, and we ended up in a position where the trustees had no option other than to sort of decide that the charity was no longer viable, and that decision was taken over a Christmas period. So we found out sort of late December that that's the decision they were going to make. And then we went into Christmas, and we had to sort of come back in January and then tell the staff in the I think it was like 3rd or 4th of January that they were all going to be made redundant, and that unfortunately that was the end of the charity. And that was heartbreaking. It was to see something you'd worked so hard to build was one thing, but to see so many people that you'd worked with and built relationships with, you'd employed, and suddenly you're having to tell them that this you've just had Christmas and you've got no money in your bank, but unfortunately I'm going to make you redundant. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, and the most heartbreaking thing. But fortunately, I worked with so many good people, and people that were loyal to the concept and to me, that we were managed to sort of turn that into something positive afterwards.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic, and now you're where you are. So that's just really wonderful. I have to say, it's absolutely brilliant. And what would you say some of the biggest things you've learned through all of that? What?
Biggest one: surround yourself with good people. I mean, ultimately, you're as good as the people around you. Know what you're good at. Play to your strengths, and then work with people and work with their strengths. There's no point in hiring really good people and then not listening to them. I'm crap with computers. There's no point in me employing somebody who knows about computers and then trying to override what they're saying. It's no different in marketing. It's no different in teaching. It's no different in any industry. If you're going to hire people that know what they're doing, then take them at face value and listen to them, learn from them. And that's the other one, is just learn, whether it's through reading, whether it's through going to seminars, whether it's from talking to people. Just spend time developing yourself, because I'm definitely a far better version of who I am now than I was 10 years ago. But I'm also a better version of who I am now than I was a week ago, because I want to be, and ultimately my business deserves me to be. The kids I work with deserve for me to be. So I think that's a huge learning point, is be prepared to develop yourself, and that don't come cheap, it don't come free, it don't come I don't mean you're going to spend a lot of money on it, but you've got to invest time and effort in. And ultimately I think that's something, no matter what industry you're in, I'd recommend that. Write things down, because you know yourself, Chris, you get dragged from pillar to post, and people are always wanting things from you, and you want to help people and you want to sort of do things, but you forget, because if you don't write it down, you don't hold yourself to account and hold other people to account, then things get missed. So I think that's the other thing, is record things.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolute bang on, because you've got nothing to reference or go back on or anything, have you? It's crazy. Sorry, go on.
I would say another one is know your worth and know who you are. I think we spent a long time learning who we wanted to be and who we are and what we want other people to perceive us as. And I think that sometimes you've got a vision of who you want to be, and you think that's who you are, and you think that's who the world know you as. But because you're so sort of inconsistent, it can really throw people off, and that's not their fault, that's your fault. So I think actually identifying what you are and what your organization's about and your values and your brand and everything around that, once you've established what that is, and you make it really clear to people, and don't deviate, because the more you deviate, the more inconsistent you are, the more people will get confused, and that's not their fault. So if somebody comes to me to sort of deliver something that's not in our remit, that's my fault for not having made sure that we were clearer in our approach.
Wonderful. That's some big learnings there, and great to hear them. And just in general, as you know, we're a coaching organisation. I'm interested to know whether it's in business or in sport or life in general. Who would be the best coach you ever worked with, and what made them so?
Well, before I knew we was interviewing on this, Chris, it was a really straightforward answer, mate. So when I sort of look at coaching, whenever I talk to anybody, you were one of the biggest influences. We met way back when I was first starting out, so thank you for all the input you gave me back in the very early days of sort of getting on track. But when I look at coaching and sort of, as you know, I've been involved in rugby all my life, and I've worked with a lot of coaches, and I've worked with a lot of mentors, and I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring in my own time. So I've worked with some really good people. So this is not to sort of say that they weren't amazing and they didn't make a big difference. But if I had to sort of boil it down to the people that made the most influence, professionally, I'd say there's three key people that made a big difference in my professional career. My apprentice master when I was 16, and although it wasn't a sports coach or a business coach, he was a life coach. I grew up in a single parent family on a really rough estate. In many rough estates, we bounced around a bit, and I was quite a problematic young man. And at 16-year-old, I got banged with this apprentice master. And my first apprentice master was like, "Nah, I'm having him." And then I got moved to another guy. And Rich is a friend of mine. He is still a friend of mine now. We speak we see each other 3 or 4 times a year, and he taught me about what it was to be a young man, how to sort of hold myself, how to carry myself, how to be appropriate, how to have the right attitude, just generally how to be a good person and how to be a happy person to make the most of life. And he's like a big brother, and I sort of love him to bits. And he's somebody. I'm the godfather to one of his boys, and he's close with all my family. And then sort of on from that, died in the military. One of my sergeants in the military. In fact, 2 of my sergeants really. I got Nick Kearney and Paddy Jones were two really good people who were really grounded, and I was talking that I went to a reunion at the weekend, 100th anniversary of 2 Squadron, and it was fantastic. So I saw all these people I used to know many years ago, and spent a lot of time around people over the weekend that I've not seen since sort of back in Iraq and things like that. So it was incredible. But one of the guys that was there was Paddy, and I speak to Nick now and again as well. And as far as they were grown-ups in a world full of young adolescents and men, and when I say they were grown-ups, not because of their age, it was the manners, the way they held themselves, the characters they had. You'd be sort of, whether you're on exercise, whether you're on operations, or whether you're out on a night out, they had a calm demeanour. They took everything on board. They registered everything. They weighed up everything, and then they gave honest feedback, but in a really calm manner. They weren't screaming. They weren't shouting. They weren't sort of panicking. It was always calm. It was controlled. It was well informed, and it was delivered in a way that gave responsibility out to people and made you feel valued, and it's a leadership style that I've always sort of wanted to, and I aspire to work towards, is empowering other people while still holding control, and that was a huge learning point from those.
Wow.
And then along with yourself in business, a guy called Anthony Brook. I don't know if you know Anthony.
Rings a bell, but I don't know.
Runs an organisation called Challenging Leaders, and much like yourself, Chris, it's when it comes to coaching and sort of developing and learning, it's that shared knowledge, but it's also pulling out the knowledge that you've got yourself, and the knowledge of your network, and how to share that information and that sort of understanding, and to sort of become more self-aware. So again, I think I've listed a lot of people there, mate, but it's I think, like I say, I'm all for surround yourself by really good people and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's often we learn specific things from specific people, so it's quite sensible that it's not one individual; it would be a group of individuals. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your comments. They're gratefully received. But And you know, have you picked up over time any favourite sayings or quotes that you use a lot, or you fall back on?
I think with the military, there's quite a few that get thrown in, and are quite relevant outside of the military. So it's no plan survives a contact. I think it's one that you use as well.
Definitely.
There's complete truth in that in every walk of life, and the business is no different. You can plan all you want, but sort of as soon as things start happening, you have to start revising that plan. Then you've got improvise, adapt, and overcome is another common saying in the military, and I think it's quite relevant that again, when the plan goes wrong, well, okay, let's look at what we can do about it. Let's quickly shift that plan and improvise and adapt what you're doing and overcome. And I think that's something that's quite relevant. But there's a Steve Jobs one, and it's great things. Hang on, I'm trying to work out what it. Great things in business don't get done by one person; they get done by a group of people.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. I mean, I'm the face of LS10, and I'm the chief exec. But ultimately, LS10 came about by 17 of us sat in a room when we went bust, saying this is too good to let go of.
Yeah,
we've done too much. We've done too much. We've worked too hard, and there's too much goodness in this potential organization.
yeah.
How can we get things going, and then what can we do again? And we've still got, out of that group of 17, I think there's still 6 of us left at LS10.
Yeah.
And the people that have been added to the whole group at LS10, it's about good people.
Yeah, wonderful. No, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, you've had quite a journey over time. What have you learned about yourself?
Probably that. Again, it's that self-awareness around what I'm capable of and what my skills are. Yeah. And I'm good with people. I like people. I'm sort of I like to spend time getting to know people, understanding what they like, what they don't like, and try and get the best out of other people. Yeah. And I'm an idealist, but I'm also quite robust, so I don't mind getting knockbacks, and I don't mind sort of failing and starting again. And I think that other people don't necessarily have those skills; they have other skills. Yep. So I think if you can use my strengths to enhance and add value to other people's strengths, then that's when you can get good outcomes. So it's I think accepting failure as a guidance, as opposed to being a definite answer.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite common in so many successful people that I've spoken to, is that it is, you know, failure is just the next step to success. It's and in fact, Brad Chiggers, who I know you're aware of, you know, he said some time ago, he's as successful as he is because he's made more mistakes than anybody else, not despite. It's that willingness to do stuff and, you know, and take the risk and you know, choose not to accept any particular point of appeared failure to be the end. And, you know, as you say, you 17 guys sitting in a room in January, and I remember talking to you at the time, and it was you know, you just chose to have this future, and it's wonderful. So you didn't mention inspiring leadership as something you learned about yourself, because I would suggest that is something that from a self-awareness point of view, you can be people, but there's being good with people, and there's being good at leading people. And
I think I enjoy being a leader. I'd struggle not to be these days, I think, and I think that's that's a positive and a negative all in one, because it's I think when things sort of were at their lowest ebb, and it was looking at the idea of going and working somewhere else, and I did explore that, and I looked at opportunities, and to be frank, I'd earn a lot more money in some other industries. But the idea is ultimately you're a long time dead and you're a long time retired, and if you're working in an area where you can't have a say in the direction you're going, and if you can't be doing something you truly believe in, then it's not for me. I know some people work for the money. I'm not interested in that. It's about, ultimately, I want to know that what I'm doing is making a difference, and we're going in the right direction. So yeah, I think leading is one of them things that I love doing it. I love sort of making decisions. I love being accountable. I love, ultimately, when things go well, my team have done brilliantly, and we've all achieved something. When things have gone wrong, ultimately, the buck stops there. And we've got to hold account to. I think that's every leader's got to be in that sort of mindset.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. And looking forward now, obviously you've come through so many different things to this amazing situation we are now. What does the future look like, and what might be some of the challenges that you face as you move forward?
Oh, I mean, the future in regard to LS10 is positive. It's we've just took on the youth work contract, so that's a big sort of positive for what we're doing, and we want to build on that. We're sort of working with a number of the delivery partners across the city, and working with some really good organisations in that, and I think there's a huge amount of learning that can be done from sort of sharing that sort of responsibility for delivering that programme. So I'd like to see that grow. I'd like to see that strengthened. I mean, it's got a 3 years plus 1+1, so this, like, really 5 years worth of potential funding. But typical of any local authority funding, it's not as good as it could be. So ideally, we'd like to see some additional social responsibility funding coming in to sort of enhance that programme. I'd like to see the school get Ofsted. So we're Ofsted registered. We're waiting for Ofsted to come out and grade us. So I'd like to see the school go from strength to strength. We've been talking today about sort of looking at more therapeutic workers coming in and delivering some speech and language and things like that. So we've got a really good head of education who's sort of got a really good understanding about what the young people need and how we can best strengthen and support the delivery for those people. So that's another area of growth to look at. We've got an outdoor skate park that's nearly completed. So it's that's been built on the back. It started out as a volunteer project with some really good volunteers, but then when COVID started, it sort of disrupted it. And so now we've got some contractors that started out as volunteers that really stuck into it and doing really well. And hopefully we'll be launching that in the summer. So that'll be really positive. So the future looks bright for LS10, and I'm looking over the next few years and seeing things just strengthening and sort of firming up and being stronger on site, with no desire to sort of push on to sort of a different area or anything like that anytime soon. We're just very keen to strengthen what we're doing in the area we're in. So, and for myself, I'm doing a degree. So yeah, I'm 42, and I figured it's time I sort of I got a proper formal business qualification. So I'm doing a business degree. I'm in year 1, but I've just had to like have a pause in it because I had a heart operation a month ago. So I was unable to submit an assignment. So I've had to put a pause on for a couple of months, but I'm starting back up again in a month's time. So that'll be interesting, and it's quite. I talk about learning and development, and I'm a huge believer in we all learn in different ways, and I've never been an academic, and I struggle with academic reading and academic writing. I find it a lot easier to listen to an audio book than I do to sit and read a book, or to watch a YouTube video, or to speak to someone like yourself, Chris. I find all that engaging and interesting, especially the sort of mentoring and coaching, because it's interaction. Reading a book I find hard. Sometimes if you find the right one, it can be really good, but it's never my go-to option. So to a degree, it's a challenge. It's to sort of start getting on board with reading books and things like that for each assignment. But I'm confident I'll get through it. I don't know if I'll be getting firsts or anything like that, but it's and I spoke to my chair at work, and my chair says, you know that we don't need that. We've got full confidence in who you are and what you do, but we fully support you with it. So if it's something you feel you need to do, we'll back you.
Brilliant. Wowzers, as if you didn't have enough to do, I would have thought. But well done, really well done. So just sort of to wrap up a little bit, what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
I'd sort of basically do your research. It's I think a lot of people jump into a business because it's they think it'll be fun. And it is, it's really fun, and I would urge people to do it. But at the same time, do a bit of research first, and just sort of go and talk to business owners. Go and look at the industry you want to go in, and work out what works and what don't work, and
Yep.
learn from other people's mistakes. And people will tell you. People love talking.
Yep.
People love to share, and maybe don't go to direct competition and ask them the sort of what works and what don't, but also maybe do, because again, we all like to sort of tell our story as such, and then get experience, work hard. I mean, sort of, I think sometimes there's this bit of a thing that you go on a business so you don't have to work. That's ridiculous. It's I don't know anybody that works harder than the business owners or the business leaders. It's you're the ones that are first in, last out, or if you're not first in, last out, it's because you've been working all night at home. So it's don't take it if it's an easy option, but definitely do it. It's having control of the direction you're traveling is to me so important. But then be honest with yourself. If you're doing it for easy reasons, then it's not likely to work. If you're going to graft, and you're going to sort of really get behind it, and also if you've got a partner or if you've got a family, make sure they're on board with it, because the last thing you need is somebody that's not going to sort of support you. When I talk about coaching and everything, well, best coach I've got, my missus. 100%. Every idea I've ever had, I've spent hours working through with Amy, and we are chalk and cheese. She's so smart and so analytical, and I have 100 ideas, and 2 of them might be good, but 20, 30 of them are banged out the minute I mentioned them to her, and she's like, "That's it's think about this, and this." So I've somebody that you can have that conversation with, who can be brutally honest with you. So, but yeah, 100%. Anybody that wants to sort of run a business and wants some understanding, I'd talk to anybody. I'd sort of happily give my limited knowledge on it.
Brilliant. And if you started again, is there anything that you do differently? I think it's hard. It's an hard answer to that one, because you ultimately, the highs and the lows create who you are. And I mean, I could go back and say I wouldn't have merged my organisation at that time, and I'd have done better due diligence. And it's but I've learned so much from that process that actually I'm in a better position now, professionally and personally, than I was at that time, even though it was horrendous and we had a really tough couple of years. But actually, now we're through the other side of it. It's a lot better. Work-life balance, Chris, I mentioned it to you earlier, is that I've had a COVID twice, and both times have triggered heart conditions that have left me sort of laid up and unable to work and unable to spend time with my family. And on both occasions, it sort of really opened my eyes that I love what I do. I'm really passionate about my job. I'm really passionate about sort of the organisation, the people I work with. But ultimately, the most important people in my life are the people in my house, my wife and my kids. And when it comes down to the fact you're looking at your mortality and thinking, will I make it to the end of the year? Nobody at work's going to know I was in 20, 30 years time. My kids will. And so I want to make sure that sort of the memories they've got are all really good, and it's not me just racing out to work or sort of stressing sat over a laptop. I want them to sort of have really good experiences. But fortunately, I was able to put a lot of things in place so that when I do have kids, I can now make sure that I've got a decent work-life balance. Brilliant.
But the other thing is give back. Give back.
Yep.
I mean, it's I've just become a charity of a domestic violence trustee of a domestic violence charity. And I'm sort of looking at other organisations I can be involved with, so that again, it means I can give a bit of my understanding of my sort of experience and help them. But also, it's great for sort of your own development as well, because you're looking at personal growth and being a better person, and that's got to be good for an organisation.
Yeah. No, it makes absolute sense. And finally, what would be the best advice you would give an 18-year-old you if you could?
be nice to everyone. But ultimately, you never know who anybody is, whether sort of where they've come from, no matter what age they are, what they're doing. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice and just be a good person. And by doing that, you will learn more about who you are, who they are, and just generally sort of be a more positive person, because positivity breeds more positivity. Don't be afraid to fail. Give everything a go. Have a go at anything and everything. And if it goes wrong, so what? What's the worst that can happen? Especially when you're 18. I mean, it's a long life. Enjoy making mistakes and learning from them. I've already said, sort of like, back yourself. If you don't back yourself, then it's going to be hard to convince other people to back you. I remember when I talked about LS10, and I remember we talked very early on, Chris. And I remember talking to somebody I knew quite well, and I said, look, I can't let this go. I'm sort of going to drive forward this, and I showed the finances at night. It's just not going to work. It's just not. And I was only an arm, and it was a matter of, do you know what? If I can't believe in this, then nobody else is. So I had to go away, review it all, redo it all, and then just go back and say, look, this is going to work. This is the fact. This is how this will work. They got on board, and they sort of helped us drive it forward. So back yourself, no matter what, but be realistic. Don't go thinking that sort of when I joined to join the military, if I'd have said I'm going to be a pilot, they'd be like, mate, you're not. Not with them qualifications, you're not, mate. So be realistic as well.
Brilliant. Well, very sound advice, and I think you've clearly taken that back in yourself as advice very well over time. That's very, very clear. And
a good coach, Chris.
Thank you. It has always been a pleasure, working with you, and it'd be great, as I say, circle back in 12 months and just see the next level and the next step, and just see where you're going. And but I absolutely wish you all the best of luck, and thanks so much for your time today, Carl, because with all that going on, your time is clearly precious, so thanks for spending the time with us.
No, thank you very much for having me, Chris. It was lovely to talk to you, mate, and I'm always happy to sort of share what I do know.
Thank you.